on this episode of Magic in the Mind. Just know that you have the power to assign it the meaning that it has for you.
So it's not even that it's like internal and spreading. What feeds it is the validation you look for in your external environment that causes it to spread.
I always encourage people, yes, we should have the independence, we should have the ability to rely on ourselves, but I feel that we're meant to be able to do things on our own. We're meant to build the strength and the resiliency to make everything on our own and do it totally solo, and then still make the conscious choice and decision to not do it alone.
So think of like your emotions, right, as the watering of the seeds of the curse, and do not water it. That's why I'm saying turn off the thoughts, because your thoughts are going to want to water it.
I don't know if you have the same experience with curses and hexes and things like that. For me, if I'm removing them, they are sticky. They leave residue, and that shit gets everywhere. Everything in this world is both a physical, 3D, scientific reality, at the same time, a spiritual, energetic, magical reality. It is always both. Welcome, seekers, to Magic in the Mind, the podcast where modern science meets with what lies beyond what we can see. Here, we delve into psychology, spirituality, science, and the occult. Each episode will explore the bigger questions of existence, the nature of the soul, our internal world, and how we can understand them through spirituality and magic. This podcast is a sanctuary for the soul. Alongside science and spirituality, we also learn the power of compassion and the magic of extending kindness to others. For in the act of giving, we receive. In the act of teaching, we learn. This is a journey into the depths of the mind as well as the heart, where every lesson is a step toward oneness, every insight a bridge to understanding, and every act of kindness a spell that transforms the world. So join me, Alice Autumn Strange, on this journey of self-discovery, scientific wonders, ancient knowledge, and finding your own inner wisdom. Hello, this episode is part 2 of my interview with Cameron Fletcher. We are talking about curses, but this episode is more about the technicalities of jinxes, hexes, and curses, the difference, and how to remove them, including correspondences and different methods. Other related topics that we will touch on in this episode include some unexpected information about grounding, how to activate your herbs and spellwork so that they really work for you, some facts about energy work, surprising facts about cleansing, deities to call on, and both internal and external ways of taking care of jinxes, hexes, and curses. This episode is just packed with so much great wisdom. You cannot miss this. If you really enjoy this episode, please rate it or comment on whatever platform you're using so more people can find it, and it really helps out the podcast just in general. And now, here's part 2 on curses with Cameron Fletcher. So you did a video, as I mentioned, about curses, jinxes, hexes on your channel, and you made such a good metaphor. Like, the whole explanation was amazing. I would love for you to just kind of touch on that a little bit to kind of explain the difference for everybody.
Yeah. So I'll start off with a jinx, right? Jinxes, I would say, are very playful. They're very innocent a little bit. It's like tripping and tying your shoe, or being a little bit more clumsier than you would be, or oh man, this thing broke when I didn't think it would normally broke. Jinxes are very light, they're playful, they're tricks, and it's a good way, I guess I would say, to understand a little bit more about how your power works a little bit, especially with focused intention. So jinxes are playful, they're humorous, they don't necessarily do a lot of harm. Hexes, however, that's where we start to get like the seeds of toxicity planting. And I will say that a jinx does not blend into a hex. So you can jinx somebody, but a jinx stays a jinx. A hex can lead to a curse. So hexes, what they do is hexes are a little bit more serious, but they're like, again, think of like planting a seed into something and then starting to watch it spread. So a hex is a precursor to a curse. And a hex, what it does is it takes a little bit of root in your brain, a little bit, and then it starts to spread. And then you're going to start to notice in like, so we talk about jinxes a little bit, right? Oh my gosh, my favorite thing broke, or my grandmother's ashes broke, and I can't get that back. And these repeating bad things keep on happening to me, which will then the repeated set of thoughts, behaviors, and actions and feelings even will lead to a curse. And a curse from a hex basically is that repetitive over and over again because it's taken root in your brain and spread. And so a hex, think of hexes as spreading. That's what they do. You're planting the seeds and watching the toxic vines or the toxic branches grow, which will then lead to a curse. So hexing people, you know, even the kind of name around the connotation of it is like, oh, I'm hexed. It has a lighter energy to it than a curse because curses have that perceived energy of going on for years and centuries and generations. And so it's heavier to it. Hex is lighter in a sense. But what it does is again, it spreads, it takes root, and hexing people, even though it is lighter than a curse, you've started somebody in their brain cursing themselves. That's kind of a brief explanation of a jinx, a hex, and a curse, and how they kind of work in tandem. Jinxes will, I will say, compared to hexes and curses, teach lessons still with people. Like the great story that you kind of gave could technically be seen as a jinx, but as it continues on, it will come to a hex a little bit if you have like, especially if you're stacking energy. So that's where in that random case, a jinx can lead to a hex is if you're stacking that energy on top of it. The more energy you put into something, stacks the energy and then creates hex to curse a little bit. So it is like stacking energy.
I think that's a really good explanation. But if anybody's interested, Cameron does an amazing deep dive on his channel. The video we talked about, it'll be in the description, a link directly to the video and his channel, all that stuff. So check it out if you're interested. It's really, really good. Just to touch on real quick, for anyone who thinks they might have like a curse or a hex or something going on, and they have these loops, these, you know, isolation, the things that show up, the confusion, thinking they're crazy, you know, just feeling very bad luck kind of energy. We touched on it a little bit, but in your opinion, what are the things that lead to that worsening? Like, of course, we perpetuate it, right? We're the one who makes the hex turn into the curse. So, or, well, sometimes we can make it worse with our own things. What, in your experience, are the things that really fuel that the most?
Things that really I would say fuel that the most is like I kind of when I briefly touched on like how hexes spread, you will start to see that in your external environment. So it's not even that it's like internal and spreading. What feeds it is the validation you look for in your external environment that causes it to spread. So when kind of like what I was saying with like hexes and when you plant the seeds and get it to spread in people, people don't necessarily know that they're hexed, but they're going to see it in their environment. So with magic, right, you know, it's in a way, it's a little bit of an illusion because we're like, oh yeah, I planted this and I threw this energy at you in your way. And it is starting to plant and spread in your brain, but you're going to see outside examples. So that's where people, like you said, are starting to perpetuate it and make it worse and see it because I'm going to see this example in my outside environment. And when I start to see it in my environment, I'm going to take it inward instead of realizing the real example about like it starts inward and goes outward. People take in their environment and say, it's in my environment, so I'm going to take it in. And that's kind of what I will say makes it worse is you're going to see it in your environment But that's where, again, separating the self from what we're experiencing in our environment, you got to be like, wait a minute, this isn't normal that I see these things on a daily basis. I'm just now starting to see this a little bit. Something's odd. And again, doing like intuition and meditative work, especially of understanding yourself. If somebody is throwing some energy of a hex or a curse at your way, and it's not something you normally see in your environment, the more you practice and do this work, you're going to be able to recognize when people send this shit your way. I We'll talk more about this later, but I have a bunch of stuff with like witch wars. I've been in witch battles with people, and
Wild.
yeah, it's a lot. I mean, it's even why I'm wearing like my the eye bracelets that I wear. You know, the evil eye will send at you. Yeah.
I want to say, I meant to mention this earlier. The evil
Yeah.
eye is literally like that is an unintentional curse. Traditionally, we're talking like Italian folklore where it's like
Uh-huh.
someone unintentionally just like gives you the evil eye. It's an unintentional curse. Like that's
Yeah.
it's we this is not a new thing. Like people have been doing this for hundreds of years. It's very well known. We just call it other things.
Hmm. Exactly. And it's a good way of even like jealousy is a good example too of like
Yeah.
perpetuating curses and getting them to spread, and even hexes getting them to spread. Is that when you are taking in, like I said, the external environment and internalizing it in yourself, this is where we say, like, pay attention to your surroundings, pay attention to what is normal for you versus what becomes abnormal a little bit. And you're going to have a little bit of difficulty processing this because it is kind of, will say, hard to differentiate unless you're kind of doing a lot of this spiritual work over the time to differentiate. Is this a life lesson that I'm supposed to be learning from somebody who hasn't cursed me and is maybe like my guides or higher self or the deities that I work with? Are they teaching me something? Or has somebody thrown something else my way? And I will say again, internally work and connecting with your intuition and your third eye in particular will start to get you to recognize the differentiation in this. So new practitioners, you're not going to get this right away. But like I said, in the case of where somebody is throwing a curse or a hex or even a jinx at you, you know, it is good to you will come out on the other side of it and process it eventually. And when you do, again, it's just going to make you stronger as a practitioner over and over again. So from to answer your question again, it's like those outside influences, flip it internal to outside, not outside to internal. It's not how it works,
Yeah.
you know? And you, again, you will, and even especially when you're really connected with your intuition and your emotions, you will feel when somebody is sending some shit your way. And
For
you'll be
sure.
like, wait a minute. Because your body will naturally send you signals when it's off. Like if you're wounded, right, and you have a lot of pain, your body sends signals to itself to be like, this needs healing. So it works the same way with like hexes, jinxes, and curses. It if somebody's sending something at you and you make it worse by internalizing it and trying to do the work of processing all of that, you can actually cut it off really early to be like, okay, what signals is my body sending me and my mind sending me and my emotions sending me that doesn't feel like a normal everyday part of my life? And
Yeah. Yeah. You will get signs. Your body will tell you, your guides will tell you, your ancestors. If you are someone who has a good set of ancestors, they will scream at you. But I will say it's something that you have to be kind of tapped in. And even as like an advanced, been doing this, I diagnose people with curses all the time. I do this all the time. I think when we're talking about ourselves, it's a whole different ballgame.
oh
Like
yeah.
it's hard to have a clear perspective on certain things when it's me versus like other people, and I've heard that from a lot of other people too. It's just a little harder to get a good perspective when you're inside the situation. So I would
Hmm.
love to normalize people just like asking a friend to pull some cards. I always do it with like cards, pendulum, talking to my guides, the person's guides. I mean, within like 10-15 minutes is all it takes for me to figure out, do you have a curse? Do you have a negative spirit attached to you? Do you have like something like that going on? Is this generational? Is this put on you from someone else? Is this intentional? Is this unintentional? And how do we fix it? 15 minutes. Like, and I really haven't been doing it this long. Like, it's just, it is something you can do, and I would love to normalize for people. If you don't think you can do it on your own, or you're unsure, go ahead and try. But if you're unsure and you're not, just ask. Just ask for help. Reach out to Cameron, reach out to me, reach out to a friend, literally anybody. There's so many people who are willing to just like pull a few cards. And I think they're like really interesting ways that, just as like a really weird side tangent, I will always get cards where everything comes out in reverse. Everything comes out in reverse. If it's like a curse or some other outside influence, I think it's my guides, because it happens consistently where every card will come out in reverse, and I'm like, what is this? And I just hear over and over, upside down, flipped upside down, their world's upside down. I'm like, oh, that's the sign.
Well, and even when I wanted to touch on that a little bit too, is like that resonation where you're starting to be like, okay, what's going on? Asking yourself the question. That is your body sending itself a signal to say, this is something that needs to change. This is something that needs to be processed and moved and gotten out. And even like with what you're saying, seeking out your psychic, your witches, your tarot card readers, pull some cards for yourself too, and flip them out for yourself. To be like, and especially if you're kind of like, don't have yourself a witch, a tarot reader, or a psychic, or somebody who works with energy that you can really trust, start to grab yourself a deck and pull it out yourself. And if you find yourself again asking that question, am I cursed? Something feels off? Feel it. Don't think it, I will say with that. And the best way to kind of tap into the feeling is to turn off your mind and focus right here on the heart and feel it in the heart. And your body will send you that signal of the heart to your body to be like, yeah, something's off. And this needs to be adjusted. And that's where you can begin to start doing the healing work of hexes and jinxes and curses to be like, this is not right, because your body will tell you that. And so practicing, like, again, on your intuition and focusing on the resonation of your gut versus your mind will, that's a great way to break hexes, jinxes, and curses. Stay out of your brain, because your brain is going to be like, I don't know how to process this. This is too much. Feel it. Feel it from here. Feel it from your gut. And your body will send you the signal to say, yep, you got some work you need to seek out and help do, especially if you don't know how to do it. But it will also tell you to process it and get it out. Your mind is going to over-process it and overthink it and make it worse. That's another way, like you're talking about with self-fulfilling prophecies and spinning and making your head spin. Like, turn that off, feel it, and your stomach and your heart will feel it for you and send that signal to your body.
And I think that's a good point. Talking about things that make curses, hexes worse. Yes, it's that external environment, but if you're living in fear, especially fear, if you're living, like, I know plenty of people who have a few bad luck things happen, something, and they get in their head, this like worm in their head of, I'm fucking cursed, I'm cursed, I'm cursed. And they're living in this constant, then, confirmation bias, we know that's a thing. You're starting to see all of the signs, the confirmations in your external environment, but it's filtered through this anxious fear in your head. And so, we are all biased people. No one is perfect. No one is 100% psychic and like completely immune to bias. And sometimes the bias is their own filter, or your anxieties or your fears, anxiety, fear, sometimes even like anger, jealousy, those things, any really heavy emotions can, even sadness, can really perpetuate hexes and curses to get much worse. So again, like we talked about in the beginning, just know that you have the power to assign it the meaning that it has for you. So know that the power lies within you, and you can change that.
Oh yeah, exactly. And again, especially, and also remember, like, hexes, jinxes, and curses, go off of what you're saying. they're going to show up in your external, not necessarily in your internal, unless you allow it to plant itself there. So think of like your emotions, right, as the watering of the seeds of the curse, and do not water it. That's why I'm saying turn off the thoughts, because your thoughts are going to want to water it and make it grow, because it's a energy planted in that brain. So that's why you turn off the brain. If you don't, think of like your brain as like the soil, right? And if you don't water the soil with your emotions, it's going to dry out and it's going to die because it can't grow. So just, if you're overthinking these things, like we're talking about stacked energy of curses, turn off your thoughts and just understand what you might be watering it with the feelings, and then the emotions will not allow those thoughts to grow and spread, which are your seeds. Like we're equating it to magic and elements. Understand your elements inside your body of,
Yeah.
my thoughts are my air, but they're also grounded in my reality, which is my earth, my emotions being my water, and my fire being my flame of intention I don't want extinguished because I'm over emotional. Like balance those elements inside you. And that will also help you not perpetuate and grow hexes, jinxes, or curses.
What a tasty metaphor.
You're right. Exactly. I mean, since we're magic practitioners, we're gonna work with the elements. So understand the elements within your own body, and don't, because you're gonna, again, with hexes, jinxes, and curses, it's gonna start on the outside. But if you allow it to be planted in your brain on the inside, that's where it will start to affect your internal.
Yeah. Yeah. So you do cover some of this in your video, but I
Yeah.
would love your perspective on a few like herbs, correspondences, anything you think is really powerful that someone might not think of for like curse breaking, hex breaking. What are things like you personally use?
Oh, yeah. So first of all, there's a bunch of different ways from a bunch of different cultures to break hexes, jinxes, and curses. So, like for a Santeria curse, in a good way, as an example, is, they'll make like a bamba or like a cauldron that has a bunch of different like cursed elements in it. So you can balance out that same kind of energy with a cauldron that has things that break hexes, jinxes, and curses. Let's say if you're working with Santeria magic. So some herbs and some stuff that I would say is really good. Um, Use devil's claw root. Devil's claw breaks a lot of. It's a really strong, powerful energy breaker. People get a little nervous. It's like, oh, it's the devil's claw. I actually have what it looks like right here. I mean, put this thing like this together, you got yourself a really effective thing that's going to break you some heavy curses. So this is the devil's claw right up here. It's this long thing. That's why it's called claw. And if you can get yourself on a whole one, that's great. If not, they break it up for you in a whole bunch of different ways. And you can take like baths with it. You can put it under your pillow. You can do a whole bunch of stuff like that. So devil's claw is a really, really good one. Devil's shoestring is really good for breaking financial curses. And I know these are traditional hoodoo herbs, but I come from, again, the place of chaos magic. So if it's from the earth, if it's from the plants, you don't necessarily have to be a hoodoo practitioner. It's good to respect the traditions, of course, and understand them a little bit. But think of it in the terms of, it comes from the earth. There's a conscious energy of thought about what these do with all of the practitioners that use them. So tap into that energy when you're breaking these hexes or jinxes or curses. Because, again, what I get sometimes from people when I'm using these herbs, they're like, oh, this is a hoodoo thing, so you're a hoodoo practitioner. And it's like, no, don't think of it like that. I'm a magic practitioner, and I don't give myself some limits. Like we were talking earlier a bit with like hedge witches, it's an element, it's from the earth. There's a conscious energy and belief around it. Tap into that energy. So devil's claw root, devil's shoestring. You want to also have kind of a controlling element of it. So on the back of this in particular, I have licorice root. Licorice root is a good one for having a little bit of more focus and control in what you're doing. Licorice root is super powerful. You tie it to the self. You can wrap your hair around it, spit, even blood, if you want to get into that. Something that ties it to your DNA specifically, so you have more of a focused control around the energies that you're using. Those are some really good ones. Now, if you want to, usually I want to say you want to use really strong herbs for really powerful stuff like curses. There is lighter stuff as far as herbs that you can use, especially that you can ingest internally as well. Chrysanthemum is really good for teas, and that will really affect you if you've been cursed by like deity energy or higher spirit energy or even daemon or demon sort of energy. Chrysanthemum really, especially if you make it into a tea and do it internally, will protect you from that energy that you were going to do internally. Rosemary obviously is really good. It's a little bit lighter, so that might be good for like a jinx or maybe a lighter hex on what you're doing. Now, I will say that too, most people use salt. Salt is good, but salt's more of a purifier of energy, not necessarily something that's going to help you fully remove it. So if you're using salt, especially with like what I say with the devil's claw root, the licorice root, the devil's shoestring, that have more of these heavier energies, use that as more like making a circle around it as a purifier to cleanse more of the energy, not necessarily get it to help you remove curses. So with like, and even black salt is really good in that same kind of context for removing hexes, jinxes, and curses a little bit. It's a little bit heavier than regular, like sea salt or salt like that. It does banish, does the banishing for it. But again, it's not necessarily fully effective for removing heavy curses and jinxes. Herbs in general are going to kind of carry more heavier weight than some other ones. So if again, understand if we want to just knock out like the big stuff, combine licorice root, devil's claw root, especially if it's like financial heavy curses, add some of that devil's shoestring, add some bay leaf if you want to get, more of a focused intention. One of the things I do, especially with like the licorice root, and I want to have more focus and control in a sense over the energies I'm projecting with moving a curse in particular, is I'll make like a licorice root triangle. Triangles and shapes, that's a whole other conversation we could have about shapes of magic. But
passionate.
yes, but know that like triangles, even if you want to make a triangle of salt and a triangle of black salt, that's the manifestation aspect, is a triangle. And you want to bring that in there and do it that way. So you also, when you're kind of removing hexes, jinxes, and curses a bit, you want to give some stuff that kind of gives you a little bit more of a power boost because your energy is going to be kind of low. So I use stuff like ginger is really good, and that's able to be ingested. So you're going to want to do internal herbs that you can use and drink in like a tea, or put it in your food, or put that energy in something that you're going to ingest. Not every herb especially is allowed to be ingested. It will poison you. So
yeah, be careful.
Yeah, and make sure you're not allergic to any of this stuff either. So test it out a little bit on your wrist or on your skin. But especially if you want to remove hexes, jinxes, and curses, you're going to have to do internal ingestion of energies and herbs versus just external stuff. That's why I would recommend you can bathe in this stuff too. Some of these herbs, so I'll do like baths of like devil's claw root, and it's like murky and kind of gross, but oh my god, you feel so good afterwards. And make sure it doesn't also clog up your drain, because like that's
I do them in the little like Muslim or like you get like jewelry in the little bags, the little like cloth bags. I just put my herbs and shit in that and duck and.
Oh yeah, see, that's actually a great idea. But yeah, those are just
my drains are fragile.
Yeah. You know what else I will say too is not necessarily herbs, but what you can do. Think of like well, you can think of like curses, and especially hexes and jinxes, as like knotting and twisting stuff up in you. So I've done it too, where I've done like a boil of these different herbs of like salt, rosemary. I'll put some lemongrass in there, which is really good. I will put in a little bit of aloe vera, some of that plant, which is actually really good. And you do that in a boil. And then what you do is you'll soak like a knotted ball of twine, or I use like hemp sometimes. And if you want to do is you're going to make this ball of knots, right? And then as you're doing and putting intentional energy work in how to remove like hexes, jinxes, and curses, untie it and unknot it yourself and untangle it. And what that's going to do is internally, that's going to help you process and untangle a bunch of stuff in there. But also, like, I've added stuff in this kind of tangled, knotted ball of like, is it Spanish moss, which is a really good one. Spanish moss will help if we use it to tangle, but you can use that same element in herb to untangle as well when you're for doing it in the kind of energy work. So yeah, that's just a few and some of the herbs I use for removing heavy shit.
I think a lot of people think of salt as like the go-to,
Yeah.
and I am of the same opinion that it's kind for me it's like a cleanup crew.
Yeah.
Like I will cover my surface in salt or do a circle or some kind of container. If I'm doing like a jar, like to keep it charged for a while, continuous spell, I will do a base of salt to kind of just like suck up all the gross stuff. Because I don't know if you have the same experience with curses and hexes and things like that. For me, if I'm removing them, they are sticky. They leave residue, and that shit gets everywhere. So I gotta do it here to keep my space clean. But I also have like my clients, like I have a very specific type of bath or shower that they can do with salt included. That just like scrubbing themselves with this to like absorb, because it is I will do virtual where I don't actually need your like DNA to do it.
Yeah.
I do a special. I make sigils where I'll make the sigil and put it under the spell as I'm doing it, and then have them draw the sigil on their body as I'm performing the spell. It's a great little stand-in for a tag lock.
Oh yeah.
My personal way around that, and then I will have them just scrub their bodies with like a salt mixture. Baths are even better. And then again with the internal ingestion to keep it flushing, because it takes a while. It
Oh,
takes
it
a
does.
while.
Especially if you like take this long time to recognize the awareness of how bad it's been in your body, it is going to take a while that same way, as long as the curse has been going on, to then get it out of you. It's because that's what curses want to do. They want to attach and link and suck on your brain and your emotions and all those things. They drain you on purpose. That's what they do. And so when you're replenishing your energy, it's going to even want to attach on that kind of new energy to be like, let me suck it. I want it. It's food. It's food for a curse. So, yeah, I love that you said that, Alice, just to kind of be like, this is going to take a while. And you can't do like one sort of shower and or bath or one sort of cleansing and be like, oh, I think I'm good.
Right.
Like, now,
This energy's been stacking for weeks, months, years.
I'd love if it works that simply, but no.
Yeah, it would be nice.
No. Especially with people that are like the salt people are like, this salt will just fix everything. I'm like, if salt fixed everything, that would be nice. But no.
We're full of salt.
Exactly. Does it fix everything? Yeah.
I think so first of all, there are very, very few correspondences I work with that, like herbal plant correspondences I work with, that I do not personally grow on my land. Like, okay, land, property. I have a little place. Everything, and I also don't grow anything intentionally. I let whatever comes. We had people here before, so some things came up from the people who lived here a few years ago, and then other things just come up crazy wild, and every single plant I find a reason and a use for. And so I don't use anything except for a few things that don't grow on my land. So a lot of those things are very private, personal things. A few that I like, I'm willing to share. Lilacs are crazy good at like banishing, but with a sweet aftertaste. It's like it'll rip that shit out, but then it's like a nice little happy vibe afterwards. Like, I don't know if you ever eat something or like drink a wine and it's like a taste and then the aftertaste. It's a good banisher. It's even good at exorcism things.
Mm.
If that's something you need, but it leaves a nice positive glow afterwards. And another one, well, one of the only things I work with that I don't grow is lemons. For me, lemons are the ultimate for cleansing or cleansing and sometimes curses. I like to use them as like a good correspondence in curse removal because they're very cleansing, purifying. They're also a little bitey, a little spicy. So it's a good, like, I think it's a little more of a kick than salt, but it's a very, like, purifying more than cleansing kind of thing. And the spell work that I did a demonstration, a video that I'm going to be posting on YouTube very soon, y'all. It uses lemons. It's actually very gorgeous. You will love it. And then what else do I use? Oh, of course, I always use garlic because I'm a Hecate girl, and Hecate is all about the garlic for me, at least personally. And so garlic is always a good one. If I have the fresh, if I have the cloves, hell yeah. If not, literally, you can just use powdered garlic. It works. Actually, you can actually use powdered garlic as like an incense, like on a charcoal disc. It's a little potent. You gotta be careful, but it is a good, like, banishing, purifying, curse breaking incense that you can use.
Yeah, even just what you're saying about garlic makes me think of like how we equate garlic to banishing like vampires, right? We talk about curses like sucking the energy out of you. Garlic, I could see, especially to prevent you from stealing and sucking up that energy off of you. You again, I so use garlic as an incense thing. That's a totally good one. You also, I would say too, is what you refer to of that kind of after. Mint does that a little bit as well, where it kind of gives you that little bit of a punch, and then it gives you that sweet a little bit afterwards. So mint, especially if you're using like financial curses on things,
Yeah.
remove financial removing, use mint as a really good one. And get yourselves an herbs book that has all these correspondences, because they will tell you all sorts of different things and combinations on how to put this stuff together. So I got
Yeah.
myself a herb book that corresponds with all of this, and I'm like, yeah.
Which one do you use? What do you use?
I see, I can't remember it right off the bat. I just recently got it, but it's this big white book of all of these different herbs, and I was putting myself together myself, the ones I use for my spell book. So I'm using like an InDesign to like, let me build myself a catalog of these different things I use for people, so that way they know specifically, especially if I'm going to teach them spells, to be like, this is how you use it together. And I will say,
Yes.
like, binding agents that you're talking about in spells really help you bring that together, which is why I specifically like to use like the licorice root as a binding agent. So you also, I'm gonna make a video and a whole thing about binding agents for herb magic specifically, because you're gonna want something that ties all of your herbs together, so that way they're not so scattered and they connect and work for you. I also want to say too, I wanted to ask you, Alex, a little bit, is like, what would you say would be a good way to help people like activate their herbs? Because what I do is I whisper into my herbs and I whisper their intention into them, because I feel like a lot of people, what they'll do is they're like, oh, I just have this herb and I'm going to put it together. And a lot of herbs have a lot of different correspondences with them. So I use the energy of vibration to whisper into my herbs and say, here's how they're activated. So what do you do?
I love this question. What a great question. Because so many people are like, go to your spice cabinet. You have so many things. Yes, you do. But I'm the kind of person, I need a relationship. Like, I can use herbs. Anyone can use any herb. But it's that relationship, that allyship. I if it's like a quick pinch, right? If have never done this, you need it now. I love the whispering. I'm a talker. I will talk. But I like the whispering even more because the idea of like breathing life into a spell. You know, people will talk about if you're tying knots in a spell to breathe through the knot. Breath is a magical ingredient in and of its own. And so I love that concept. I will do like a conversation, a little chit chat, and actually very casually sometimes. Certain plants like to be played with. Um, but like mugwort, for example, is a very like, we are serious. It's a serious plant. At least with me. If I'm growing it myself, there's an allyship of kind of like, I owe this to you because you raised me. You are the reason I'm alive. But like with lemons, I'm not growing them. So I do have to like do a whole ass meditation with a lemon to like build that relationship and kind of consult.
Yeah, and I said I think that's something people, especially when they're trying to figure out how do I charge these herbs that I'm going to work with. You know, like you said, no means no on certain ones, and yeah, does that suck? But you will find that there are some that are like, yeah, let's work together. Let me do this for you, especially when I'm working with herbs that are removed for like removing curses, removing hexes, and removing jinxes. When I have that relationship with them, like you're saying, what they do is they're going to work with me and not work against me. But like one thing I do after I'm done with like an herb bath or herbs that I use in a spell, if it's good kind of energy that I want to bring in towards me, I will bury it close to my house. If you're removing hexes, jinxes, or curses, bury this stuff away from your house after you're done using the herbs. I did want to specify and clarify that.
No, yeah.
Bury this stuff away from your house because you don't want to keep what they did as far as removing the hexes, jinxes, and curses close to you. You want that away from you. You want that away from your house. And what it's doing is the earth is recycling itself. So it's going to recycle into the earth when you bury it. But make sure once you're done with these herbs that you keep it away from your house. I think a lot of people forget that one too. They're like, I buried it in the front yard. Well, yeah, it's just still hanging out in your front yard. And it's going to get back into the house and get into the corners, especially of your house, and hang out in the corners. And just,
I'm always talking about how the corners gather all the stupid, stuck, stagnant. I'm glad I'm not the only person who's like, corners are nasty.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you pay attention, especially if you have a familiar, you know what I mean? The familiars will look up in the corners of the houses. And that actually even circles back to what I'm talking about. So like how energies inside your house, let's say you've been fighting a lot, there's a lot of tension, a lot of trauma in a house, that energy will build up and go hang out in the corners of your house. So when I do house clearings where there's negative energy and curses in there, I will feel the symptoms and I'll get sick and I'll start coughing. And also actually like I've thrown up sometimes because the energy in a house was so toxic. Back then I used to kind of have seizures when I would go into really negative houses. But when you think of a haunted house, right? That negative energy is storing in its corners. And if your animal, whether it be a dog, cat specifically, sometimes I've even seen snakes that will get up, and especially if like a pet snake, and it'll start to like look and observe the corners of your house. Palo Santo, sage to clear out those corners, clean your house, dust your house, clean that energy. And even like I said, I'm going to start burning garlic, and that's going to help now.
Careful, because if you put too much, like I would suggest the powdered, because if it's like a chunk, it's very potent. Like be careful, it doesn't like burn your nostrils.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, especially
I like to mix it with other stuff like sage.
Yeah, exactly. Mix up some of that or those herbs, especially that will work together. And that's something I'm going to put together, I think, for people is specifically what kind of herbs combined together will produce really good results. And because some, like you were saying, the relationships you have with herbs, some herbs don't even want to work with other herbs.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's, again, if it's got a vibration, if it's got a spirit, if it's got a soul, it's gonna like sometimes they want to work together and sometimes they do not, and you got to respect that.
It's funny. I've been making, I make intentional oil blends for
Yeah.
like for my clients and people. I'm preparing to start selling them kind of openly. But particularly the one I've really adapted lately is a protection oil, and
Mm.
there's a a particular flower that is very banishing, protective, that is sacred to my ancestors, that grows on my property, and I have to really like convince this plant that like this isn't just like this is okay for you to help other people, not just me, because it is an ancestral, and I've had to like consult with my ancestors through this herb and be like, guy, like, is this okay? Because they were not super thrilled about it at first, and then it was a lot of like time. I was respecting their no, but coming back with like, what if? Like, if I remove this other plant, if we do this instead, if it's a limited amount, and we found a really good compromise. But, Lilac, on the other hand, is just like, she's a friend to everybody. She loves everybody. And there's so many plants who are just happy to help. They're so thrilled. Sage is another one. I grow my own garden sage. I would like to say, anybody who's out there with the sage, be careful with the white sage. Do
Oh yeah.
ethically, all of that stuff, because it is going extinct, and that's really sad. But but yeah, I grow my own garden sage, which is actually just as good as any other sage, kitchen sage, whatever sage, and it's super easy to grow. Um, and he is a happy little. He's kind of like a cheerful young boy. He just wants to be friends with everybody, and it's a fun spirit to work with. And most plants, especially protective plants, are going to bat for anybody. But this one particular plant was like, I don't know about working for people besides you, and I was like, okay. And we found a compromise, and it was a very interesting development. But yeah, with the oils I make, all the plants are very much consulted with together, and very intentional, and they're all hand grown by me in my home or on my property. So it's an interesting process to kind of learn hands on without the guidance of anybody else. So now I'm teaching other people how to do it, so they don't have to figure it out on their own and make
Right.
mistakes.
And yeah, just again, so the whole thing that we were saying is just like develop that relationship with your plants, because
Absolutely.
you want them to work with you and not against you when you're doing the spell work.
Yeah. I There's like guided meditations to meet with plant spirits. That would be my go-to. Like, if you want to start doing that, start down that rabbit hole. Working with plant spirits is a whole rabbit hole on Google that you will find so much information.
Yeah, and even like when we're talking in the same vein of like removing hexes, jinxes, and curses, I found that having spirit relationships with plants combined with like my spiritual team on the other side, you create yourself like a spirit army in a weird way that will help you and alert you to on the other side of being like, yeah, you got somebody throwing some stuff your way. They're going to let you know. And they're going to work with you and be like, look, spirit team, go send this way, give me this information, go get me this stuff, and what do I need to do to get this removed? So developing a spirit team, even not just of herbs, but with your guides, your ancestors, your deities, make yourself a spirit team on the other side. You're the boss, and let them work with you, because you
Absolutely.
the body, so let them work with you and they will help you remove
Yeah.
hexes and curses.
I mean, even on that vein, like, we could go down such a rabbit hole, but like, if you have a tree next to your home,
Oh
talk
yeah.
to Mr. Tree. Give him an offering of some fucking water, moon water, whatever the fuck you have. Just like give him some bird seed. I had a tree that loved bird seed. He liked the birds, but just like that tree will tell you if someone's trying to fuck with your energy. Like, it is linked to the place you live. And then you could talk about house spirits and so many things about. Yeah, yeah. It's a whole rabbit hole.
And even like we're to like in the same of like grounding to release energy, you have that relationship. I have the relationship with the tree outside my house that has a bunch of eyes on it, so it looks out for me. And what I do is when I'm doing grounding to release negative energy, so you want to do grounding as a daily practice, grounding, release energy, and having that specific spirit relationship with the tree that I do outside my house that has all of the eyes on it. What it does is when you're grounding, it will go into its roots, pull out the negative energy from your roots when you're grounding from the bottom of your feet into the ground, and it will help you release a lot of that cursed energy yourself. So having that same kind of, like you're saying, relationship with the tree, go hug a tree, right? Definitely go hug a tree. Develop that relationship. And when you're grounding with the tree specifically, it will pull that negative energy out of you. What is the, you think, remember that book, The Giving Tree? That is a perfect example of what we're talking about, of the relationship that that tree had with the boy. And again, develop that relationship with a tree, and you will find a lot of your curses, hexes, and jinxes when you're grounding specifically to release the energy. It will pull out a lot of stuff that you're even unaware of out of your body.
Yeah. The earth element is naturally neutralizing. People talk about Mother Earth, Mama Gaia, like neutralizes. And that's why we bury spell ingredients. That's why we, running water is another one. You can chuck things in running water if it's not going to hurt the environment. Please don't be
Yeah.
burying like awful things or
For
dumping.
example, throw sulfur and water if you're cursing somebody and then throwing it in the earth. Nah, don't do
No.
that.
I mean, honestly, it's not the end of the world to take like nasty spell ingredients that are like full of gunk, and like if it's gonna hurt the land, just like chuck it in the dump, like literally just away from your home, but like get it out. But don't bury it.
Yeah, yeah,
At the
I'm
end of the
very,
day, that's gonna bring bad karma back on you because you're like harming the earth.
yeah,
People don't think about that, but like that really is like not a good thing.
yeah. Especially if you're using stuff that specifically is going to damage the earth. Like if you're burying certain ingredients that carry cursed energy, that is going to recycle it. But if it's certain things, like again, like I say, like sulfur, you use a lot of sulfur when you do curses on people. So like sulfur is not good for the planet and good for the earth. So that's where like you say it perfectly. I throw it in a dumpster and let it take care of itself. Even if it's in like going eventually into like a landfill or whatever, I'll put it in a garbage bag that puts it in, a container that holds that negative energy, not necessarily going into the earth itself. So
Particularly a black garbage bag. Is it black?
yes, yes.
Do you have any recommendations for anybody who's non magical, not a practitioner, no experience? We talked about like baths, teas. Do you have any like unorthodox? Because I have a few little secret in my back pocket kind of methods.
Especially if it's funny, even though you might necessarily be like a religious person or even a non-religious person, sometimes just going and sitting in a church, and if that's sitting in that collected energy, being quiet, and that doesn't mean you necessarily have to participate. And you don't have to be religious to even go sit in a church. Just what you're doing is you're tapping into the collective energy of people's beliefs of good, cleansing, healing energy. So even though I'm a magic practitioner, I will sometimes go sit in a church for a really quick fix of people believing of healing and this God work, because you're feeding in a sense off of that energy, especially since I'm an empath. I'm like, yeah, let me just go take like a quick energy bath in a church really quick. I'm sure people are looking at me wearing all black and they're like, you can't belong in here, but I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on like the collective energy of like people believing in God and all of this stuff like that.
Yes.
Um, Even if you're, again, not necessarily a practitioner, just putting your feet in the grass in and of itself, even if you don't necessarily think about it and focus it on a way of grounding, you're technically grounding without grounding yourself.
Isn't that
You're
called
connecting.
earthing?
Yeah, exactly. It's like
Earthing,
earthing.
right?
Right?
It's a whole
Exactly.
thing.
Exactly. So just because remembering that you're organic material, earth is organic material. That's that connection that even if you're not a magic practitioner, just going outside and grounding and sitting in the dirt, sitting in the grass, is going to start to naturally kind of clear stuff for you. And even if like sage or Palo Santo makes you uncomfortable, talking to a plant is something magic wise, even non magic wise, that you can do. And just say, like, or, you know, having a pet as like a familiar is a great thing that will help you be alert of certain energy. And especially, like, I have my black cat that I have, the purring from a cat will, if they're, especially if they're sitting on you, will help you naturally cleanse your vibration. Dogs, especially, how they're super aware and super attentive of you. So dogs will just come and sit by you and help you start to clear your energy and clear it out. Taking a shower, something as simple like that, and thinking of the water as something that is like washing stuff off you. A great way to start clearing energy out of your body. And like you said, when you said baths, showers, I find that even if you want to do certain things to release your energy, like you and I are artists, so drawing will start to get you to clear your mind and clear things out of you. Cleaning is another good example. You're cleaning your space, you're going to start to feel good in your space. That's going to be a good way to start really clearing your energy out. And that's a few that I have myself.
Now, I love the cleaning your space. I'm a big fan of like any client that I'm removing anything heavy from. I have a whole list of like, these are all the things you should be doing to your space, to your body, to like everything. And that includes like just sweeping the floors, scattering some salt. Salt's such a good absorber. Like, it absorbs water. We know that it absorbs anything, and it's very good. It's a crystal. You know, crystals are like little sponges, so that's a good one. I also like a smoke cleanse is a good one, particularly if you have a relationship with the plant. If not, you can do a little please and thank you, a little offering to the plant. And there are certain like energies, entities, deities that are really good for like banishing, clearing, cleansing. I always go to Hecate first. Big follower of Hecate. She's actually really commonly used. Like, if you do a little search on Google, she will come up immediately, and she's actually usually pretty fairly willing to help people who are in a vulnerable spot. I mean, if you did something to bring it upon yourself, maybe not, but like, if you're in a vulnerable spot, if you really need help, she's one who will probably, if you approach it the right way, help you. What's another one? Archangel Michael. He'll help anybody. He's cool dude. He'll help anybody. I don't think he has quite the punch is like Hecate or like Kali. Kali will kick some ass. Like, do not fuck with Kali. I'm a big fan, but she is intense. So I think she's also kind of fairly willing to work with the people she vibes with. If you're kind of the vibe of Kali, but you know, she's not gonna bite your head off for just like reaching out, so that's always an option. Oh, Ganesh is a good one. He's a friendly guy. I like Ganesh. So prayers, you can always look up prayers. They're like meditations, mantras, things. I like to do a good sound cleanse, especially for those nasty corners. Sound cleansing, banging pots, you know, making really loud noises or beautiful noises. I'll do like a loud clangy all through the house to like rush things out with like a window open. And then play some like sound bowls or an ohm or something back through the whole house to bring in some like positive vibes. Yeah, those are my go-tos.
Yeah, and I would say one thing I even kind of want to touch on a little bit of this too is we talked a little bit about teas. Just drinking tea is a way to naturally kind of calm your energy and calm down. Incense will do the same thing, like you're talking about lighting to certain things. And one thing I think that people really forget, that's something we all need, is when you're going to be drained of energy, give yourself some time to sleep. Take a nap. Put yourself out in self-care. Especially if you're not into magic, you know, whatever, take a nap and recharge your batteries a little bit. And if you're going to approach any kind of this work, you know, just give yourself some rest. to recharge and redo your stuff.
On that note, I think of like sitting in the sun. The sun is purifying, just like you make sun water. That's a good like cleansing, purifying. Put your whole ass body in the sun, just like sit.
Oh yeah, exactly. Especially like I'm incredibly pale, I'm total
You
goth
can't.
kid. But sit in the sun, I'll sit in the sun for a little bit, and especially like just to recharge my energy and stuff like that. Yeah, especially if you're not gonna practice magic necessarily, or if that's something that feels a little skittish towards. There's a bunch of different other stuff that you can do, especially doing it like we said on a regular basis, that will help you cleanse this stuff, cleanse your energy, even what we're talking about, especially like give you a good starting place to just kind of like detoxify and cleanse and
Yes.
remove things out of your
Like a
energy.
baseline. Like your
Yeah.
baseline cleansed. Yeah.
Yeah, those are some really good base stuff to do.
I would also say if the curse is self imposed, so much easier. So much easier to rid of your own. Like, it's not easy to do, but doing it on your own, so much easier.
Oh yeah.
If you're not a magical practitioner, because people do this all the time. If you are not a magical practitioner and this is put on you from someone else unintentionally, harder, definitely harder, stickier, dirtier, but not quite as hard as if like a magical practitioner purposefully curse you, because like that is I mean that takes like weeks. Like sometimes people will pour like every day for a whole moon cycle. I've heard people do, and it's like that is a lot. That is a whole lot. So don't ever hesitate to just reach out and ask for advice. Like maybe you're not the kind of person who wants to pay people. Maybe you're not comfortable with that, but just like consulting with somebody who vibes with you. I always encourage people, yes, we should have the independence, we should have the ability to rely on ourselves, but I feel that especially in this spiritual journey of life, we are meant to we're meant to be able to do things on our own. We're meant to build the strength and the resiliency to make everything on our own and do it totally solo, and then still make the conscious choice and decision to not do it alone and to reach
Yeah.
out to people and have a community. Community is so important.
Well, yeah, it's just even that is an energetic release in and of itself, right? Being vulnerable and sharing that authenticity of like, these are some of the struggles I'm going through. You will feel that energetic release when you talk about it and are honest about it. And that's a great way, even to remove these hexes, jinxes, and curses with people, is to be like, oh, I can't believe I told you all of this, but I feel so much better just kind of talking about it and sharing that energy with people. Because especially when I interact with empath to empathic kind of people, when we have that exchange, we're like, oh my god, I feel so much better just talking about these things and understanding these things that I've been keeping bottled up internally, to just talk about it. And even if, again, like we were saying earlier with the mirror aspect, having that conversation with yourself, it will bounce back and revibrate and recalibrate itself to just kind of be like, it's release. And
Yeah.
so talking about it, even, and talking about how you feel, what you think, and how you're expressing this vibrational curse in a weird way is going to get you to release it, even if you're not a magic practitioner.
Yes, everything in this world is both a physical, 3D, scientific reality, at the same time, a spiritual, energetic, magical reality. It is always both. And so that venting, it feels really good. Yeah, because you're releasing so much energy. And releasing things is such a big part of spirituality and magic. Just venting, releasing your energy, venting your energy, and that can be done in a lot of ways.
Exactly. So yeah, like I said, like you were saying, Alice, go talk to people, go seek people's help, and just be vulnerable. And just, even if somebody doesn't necessarily understand it in the form of like, I feel cursed, or I feel limited or blocked, there's a bunch of different other words you can use to express the same kind of feeling and thoughts that you're getting. But talking about it with somebody is going to be a natural release of energy in and of itself.
Agreed. Well, this has been really fun, really insightful. Quite the journey, but I'm glad we got here.
Yeah, we covered a lot of stuff.
A lot. I did not expect to be here this long, but I'm not regretting a moment of my time.
Same. I feel like even just us talking about releasing hexes, jinxes, and curses, we probably removed some in and of ourselves that we were unaware of. So because especially as practitioners in the energy work that we do that love to latch onto our energy, there's definitely release in even having this kind of conversation. So I'm super grateful and I'm super thankful that you allowed me to come on and talk about this. I know there's gonna be lots of people who are gonna help with it. So I'm super excited for that aspect of it. Super excited.
It's so fun. I'm so grateful. I cannot wait for all the adventures that we are going to have together in the future.
Yeah.
The start of something beautiful. Thank you guys for tuning in. I will see you all in the next. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you made it this far, you're the best. If you're on Spotify, there will be a question below the episode that you can respond to, or if you're on YouTube, you can leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you guys would be interested in hearing from Cameron next. I'm gonna have him on the podcast again. I'd love some feedback on what you want to hear from him. And every time you interact with the podcast, the algorithm gods are more likely to suggest it to other people. So please do all the things. I really appreciate it. It helps the podcast out so much. If you're interested in learning more about the coaching I do, the readings I do, or my spells, you can click on my link tree that's in the description. You'll find all the information you need there about everything I do. And if you don't want to spend any money, you can just follow me on my social medias. We can hang out, get to know each other. It'll be fun. Thanks so much for watching. Remember, take care of yourself and be well, be kind, and may your curiosity for this world and the next never fade.